coming. So now it should ask you that you agree that we can record our session now.
Okay, I think it's doing that, and I see in the top right-hand corner a little red thing saying record. So I think we are recording.
So let me welcome Mark Jenkins. He is the owner and I would say the master trainer of Coverdale, Great Britain. He's a good friend of mine, and I think he is a very special person who is doing what, dear Mark?
Hi, Karola. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for your very kind introduction. So as you said, I'm the managing director of Coverdale OD here in the UK, and I joined the company 5.5 years ago. But actually, I was a client for 2.5 years before that, so I got to kind of taste and savor and experience Coverdale, and it changed the way I thought. It changed the way I worked, and then I had the opportunity to join the company, and it's completely changed my life. So I'm very, very grateful for that, and now it's what I do on a full-time basis.
So you were inspired, or you still are, I suppose, but you were really inspired. You have been inspired by business training, right? Yes.
And so when I went on my first Coverdale workshop, effectively as a client, I was working for another organisation in a senior role, I suppose you could say, and I had my first Coverdale experience workshop over 4 days. And there were a couple of things that just completely blew me away. The first was the fact that all of the, I'd say it in inverted commas, all of the training that Coverdale do is based on the principle and the practice of experiential learning. So knowing that people learn best through doing, from experience, and then from reviewing that experience, rather than from being told or taught, which is what happens at school, and it's also what can happen in a lot of training courses. You know, you go along and there's the trainer and they have a big handbook and you read it through, and they have lots of PowerPoint slides and and you get some information, but you don't really learn anything. So that was the first thing that really struck me, was about developing real, useful, practical skills through experiential learning in a workshop environment. That was the first thing. And the second thing that really struck me was the overarching or the overriding message that it left me with was about the importance and the power of purpose in our lives. Being purposeful in our lives, pursuing worthy purposes, but not just in the context of our whole lives, but thinking about when we work in organizations where we have a task to do, even if it seems relatively straightforward, or a project to do, or we're pursuing some kind of organizational change. We need to start by being really, really clear about the purposes of that task or that project or that organizational change. Why are we doing this? We're doing this in order to, we're doing this so that, thinking about the future and pursuing purpose. So those two things really struck me. Experiential learning as the basis for helping human beings develop real, practical, useful skills. And then the second thing, this kind of overarching message all about the power and the importance of purpose at sort of multiple levels in our lives. It's a really long answer to your question, but...
No, that's about it. This is what I wanted to know, and I was hoping you were saying that. I was hosting actually a convention of teachers the other day, and there's a lot going on in Austria at the moment with the education system, and the answer is always we need to find something so kids can experience what they need to learn. And the question comes up, how do I experience history? How do I experience geography? How do I experience maths? And there's answers. And with Coverdale, I can just agree. It's just a wonderful a wonderful method of learning for adults. Because in business, I think this is what I like about business. You know, being an artist who likes business, it's always a bit weird, but I like it that in business we are doing, we are inventing, we are innovating, we are evolving. The fact is we are doing something, and we have to have the experience, or we are constantly making experiences in order to improve. And of course you can overdo it, like just improving, self-improvement there. The fact is, in the end, if we don't have this purpose, I think every religion says that, every spiritual direction says it, and of course in business, which is actually daily life need, I think we should incorporate that as well.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And there are a couple of aspects to that are just kind of popping up in my mind listening to you say those pieces, Karola. The first one is, in terms of the education system here in the UK, we are starting to see some change coming through, but it's very challenging because budgets, you know, the budget availability for our schools continues to decrease. So resources are a real challenge for all of our schools. You know, the way that learning is transmitted in our schools is still very didactic. You know, the teacher stands at the front, tells the students stuff, sets them a couple of questions that they have to do, and then they do it and they get answers. But we've been doing some work with schools, you know, bringing in our kind of learning styles and some of the skills and tools that we introduce in grown-up workshops. And we're seeing 15, 16-year-old students in schools respond so well to this style of working and learning, as well as seeing them respond really well to, you know, the skills and the tools that we're introducing to them. So that's a really good thing. And I think it's just the start of a much longer but very positive journey. And then the second thing that you talked about, as far as, you know, that the world of work is concerned, it's clearly important for us to show up, whoever we're working for, whatever context, environment we're working in, to show up bringing our own, you know, purposes that we're pursuing in life. And it's obviously very helpful if those are aligned to the organization as well as values. And I think increasingly we're seeing people at sort of middle management levels, maybe junior management levels in organizations, you know, so those who are in the so-called millennial generation or the early Gen Zs. And in their work, they want to be working to worthy purposes as well. You know, they're, yes, making profit so that the business can continue is important. That's really about having liquidity more than necessarily making more profit year after year after year. What we're seeing and hearing is, you know, younger people moving into their first management role or junior management role or getting a promotion. So they're now leading maybe several younger managers. And what's important to them, or seems to be really important to them, is all their work being rooted in really worthy purposes, right? So there's real meaning to the work other than just, we want to make more product to sell to customers to make more money, or we want to offer diversified services in order to make more money. They really want some worthy purpose or purposes in all of that work. And the other thing as well that we're seeing is the importance of leadership behavior. You know, this links to the whole point about culture, that there's a real desire for a change in the way in which leaders behave, and it becoming less hierarchical, less directive, and younger people in management positions, in operative positions, being truly empowered and truly trusted by their leaders, you know, to do the right thing. And in there, a desire for the development of these, we would describe them as the fundamental skills of human cooperation. And a real desire for people to see more of that, you know, coming to life and supporting the work that they're doing.
Very good. It's very good. So leadership trainings are about becoming kind of a coach of development, right?
Yes, yes, completely. You know, I think that, so the basis is experiential learning. as a platform for learning to happen in a work context. And then this real desire for people to have the opportunity to develop, again, we would refer to them as the fundamental skills of leadership and human cooperation. And, we can name these skills, we can name them out loud. They're very practical, useful, helpful skills. So skills like observing, truly observing what's going on around us, because that's full of rich information that we can use. Developing the skill of listening, and not just listening to respond, but the skill of listening to understand. Not just what did they say, but what do they actually mean, and how do I build on what they mean, not just what they've said, but what they mean. From that, the skills of, we call it supportive development. So listening to, understanding, and then building on the ideas of others. The skill of giving and receiving feedback. I think a lot of the time people just operate in a feedback vacuum. Maybe they get some feedback at an annual appraisal or in a quarterly review. But that's not really the place for giving people feedback, right? Feedback should be happening all the time, every day in organizations. I observe someone doing something really well and saying some things that are really helpful, and I should be giving them some specific, useful, helpful feedback right there and then, and those conversations, feedback conversations, should be happening all the time. It's along with observation and listening to understand, the skill and the application of the skill of giving and receiving feedback all the time in order to build confidence and the aspiration to improve is something that it's just not happening anywhere near enough. And yet it's a fundamental skill of human cooperation and leadership. And there's nothing stopping everyone on this planet becoming really, really good at it. Yet we don't see enough time being focused on developing it. We would like to see more time being focused on developing that. And there's a few more, the skill of delegation, not giving someone else an instruction, but delegating, giving them the authority to make decisions on our behalf. That's really what delegation is. And we think there's a real opportunity to see a lot more well-structured, practical, useful, helpful delegation taking place in organizations, integrating others and gaining commitment, dealing with or addressing in useful and practical ways, the small little conflicts that bubble up between human beings, in the workplaces from time to time. So these are all very useful, practical skills that literally everyone on the planet, whether you're a young student in school or you're in further education, maybe at college or at university, and if you're working in an organization, any kind of organization, a gigantic corporate or a small not-for-profit or charitable organization, these fundamental skills of leadership and human cooperation are learnable by everyone and just create so much practical value and benefit to individuals, teams, and organizations. We hear and see a real appetite and a desire for more of that to be happening.
Yeah, we met through Coverdale, and I did the 4 days as well. And then I even did the training to become a Coverdale trainer. And it's, for me, it was so interesting to see. It's a very, I would call it technical approach. My background is being an artist, and we are very well trained in intuition and so on. But for creativity, what you need is a kind of feeling safe. You need to feel safe. You need to know your boundaries, and you need to trust in your colleagues. Otherwise, I always call it open and closed creativity. For open creativity, the one that's really creating something and bringing something new to the world, you need all that safety net. You need to trust your colleagues, and you need to trust that your ideas will be appreciated and evaluated. So they need to be appreciated all the time, and then you evaluate if it's useful or not, if it's supporting the cause or not. And the closed creativity, I call it, is kind of the survival the survival creativity. It's the one that we apply when our life is in danger, or the one that we apply when we always are in work overload. So we cannot open up the senses anymore. We cannot work intuitively, but we need just to go through to survive, which creates a tunnel, and that also works then with hormones and everything else. So the whole physical and psychological being is in stress, in survival mode. And in survival mode, we are very creative, but not purpose driven, just for a goal. The goal is survival. I need to get through this. It's very egotistic. So in order to create something new, something that also brings value, not only to me personally, survival, but to the other, to the whole world, I need to tackle the open creativity, and I need to create an atmosphere where people can live that open creativity. And for innovation, for example, we really need to do that. So I was really inspired by the Coverdale approach. And for me, I also add this really deep need of expressing emotions, expressing impressions, always talking on the meta level, not only if the structure was met, but how did I feel with that? For my work, this is very necessary. And in the end, you know, I know you have this great, the Ames grid, which I really appreciate. And I developed this into a co-creation canvas, and where it's not only targeted, but where it's more open, but I can put down all the things I need. And of course, it's a big part. How do I need to feel with the whole thing? And when I'm, for example, facilitating, I start, okay, what goals do we need to achieve? What would you call it a success? But then I also ask them, how do you want to feel during the whole day? What do you want to experience? Joy, laughter, seriousness, you know, it depends on the group. And strangely, as soon as I tackle that, the whole atmosphere changes immediately. And then we make an agreement how we want to feel, and then we go back to the facts. And all of a sudden the facts are easy. Yeah. And then introducing this deep belief in success and succeeding in what we plan, and supporting the success is an attitude. What I really think it's great. But this is actually where I also think business is so such a good source of experiencing life. Yeah.
Yes, I would completely agree with that. And I think a couple of the points that you made, I think are really, really valuable. You know, I think one of the things, and I'm generalizing here, so I need to be really careful about this. I don't want to make some sort of broad sweeping statement, but one of the themes, I would describe it as a theme, I guess, that in the workshops that we're doing, you know, particularly with those who are in, you know, that sort of middle management layer. And it relates to the point that you were making, is with so much pressure always to do more with less, right? Make more things, make more services, make more products, make more money with less resources all the time, particularly the human resources being cut all the time in the pursuit of the bottom right-hand corner. This often leads to difficult or really challenging leadership behaviors, and this leads to then, or can lead to, and we hear it a lot at the moment, a breakdown in trust. And this can lead to people not feeling so safe in their roles at work, such to the extent where they don't even feel safe in raising valuable performance-related issues and opportunities with senior leadership or the executive leadership in their organization, for fear of not being valued, or being valued less, or being respected less, you know, creating some sort of negative image of themselves, when really what they want to do is to help. So I think this whole idea of creating a safe environment in teams and in organizations, you know, for people to take smart risks, you know, to innovate in sensible and practical, but yet, you know, forward thinking ways, knowing that there is trust there to support them should things not go so well, or should there be, again, in inverted commas, failure, because there's always learning to come from that. And with that, the building of trust and respect and appreciation. Again, there's just a real appetite for more of that to be developing and to be happening in organizations, because there seems to be less and less of that as economies get tighter and organizations continue to pursue growth in a very, very challenging environment. It seems that almost one is taking away from or countering the other, when in actual fact, creating safe spaces for people to work in and building trust and appreciation through how we behave and how we use these skills is actually what's really needed in organizations at the moment, more than ever. It's just my personal view based on the work that we do, what we're seeing and hearing at the moment from, you know, people who are participants in our workshops from all kinds of organizations. I hope that makes some kind of sense.
Yeah, for me, it's the same experience. And what I see also, and I think this is important, very important, if you have created this safe environment, a trustful environment, it does not come down or is all just harmonious or something. I mean, it's harmonious, but in a very vivid way. So what I see is the side effect of talking to each other, giving feedback, being appreciative, knowing how to lead through, defining success or purpose, and all these parts. The side effect is you work faster, you work more productively, and the outcome of all ideas, as I'm working in the creative part, the ideas are more profound and they're easier to bring into life because somehow they serve something. And it's easy to explain, it's easy to market, it's easy to produce. And it brings back the value, money-wise, but also human-wise. And I think we should really harvest that field.
Do you know, I love that phrase, we should harvest it. And yes, again, I completely agree with you. You know, these skills that we've been talking about, as well as, you know, creating environments in workplaces and in educational environments where people do feel safe and can, you know, can push themselves and test and experiment and be creative and be innovative, and be supported and be trusted and be appreciated, and use these, described them before as these fundamental skills of leadership and human cooperation. These aren't just, you know, fluffy, you know, lovely, aren't we all wonderful together, happy clappy things. You're absolutely right. These are practical, useful skills that build efficiency in organizations, right? Through human beings just cooperating with each other in more effective and efficient ways. And from that, we get better results, right? We get better results. And I respect and appreciate that it's difficult to manage that in terms of, you know, a pure cash return on investment. And that's possible, but it's also challenging. But nevertheless, you know, the evidence is there to see in organizations that when people develop these skills in the kind of environment we've been discussing, you know, safe environments that we've been discussing, and then apply these skills, you know, to work tasks and projects, greater efficiency, greater effectiveness, better end results, and people just feeling better about the work that they're doing, and importantly, the way they are going about doing that work with other human beings. Because individuals don't exist in vacuums in teams, right? We might do a piece of work on our own for a few hours, right? Or we might be working from home today, so we are primarily working on our own. But actually, individuals make teams, right? And teams make organizations. And it's through individuals and teams and their organizations that things get done, right? So there's real practical value and benefit in people developing and applying these skills in their organizations, you know, for all of the reasons that we've been talking about. And none of it is hard to do. You know, it just takes some time to develop these skills and then to practice using them in the workplace, and then off we go.
And somehow a mind reset. No, I would say it's a mind reset, but not a difficult one.
Yes.
Just a basic one. And yeah. And just imagining, you know, as we're talking this virtual fireplace, what's your purpose, but what is also your contribution to make the world a better place? I think we talked about that. But imagining from now, in 10, 15 years, let's say digital transformation has really struck our world, and we have a lot of unemployment. Means on one hand, catastrophe, but on the other hand, we might have sorted it out so people can live, they can make a living, but maybe not earn their living with work. Do you think this mindset shift would support a peaceful living together, even if work is not in the center of our attention anymore?
It's a really interesting and big and profound question, and I'm not sure I'm either equipped or qualified to answer it, but let me have a go. Because there are a couple of pieces to this, actually. I wonder whether actually that, and I'm increasingly, I guess, thinking about this and maybe seeing some evidence of it, that actually globally we're, as well as the kind of the digital transformation, I wonder whether we are on the cusp of a global transformation that's really primarily being brought about now by a much broader, deeper understanding about the peril that our planet is in, right? Due to man-made climate change and the way in which we're continuing to develop the world of capitalism and the way in which we're continuing to just plunder the earth for all of its resources. So I wonder whether there's actually a much bigger transformation coming along in the not too distant future that's necessary in order to secure humankind's continued existence on this planet. Right? Now that sounds like a really big, grand thing, but you see it in terms of, you know, the profile that Extinction Rebellion have now, right? All around the world. We see it in Europe. You know, it's huge in the UK now with kids going on strike on Fridays in schools because they're genuinely concerned about the direction of travel, and they're genuinely concerned that there may not be a future on planet Earth for them and for their children and for their grandchildren. You know, so the existing structures that we have around the world, particularly related to transport and energy and communication, and therefore the world of work and capitalism, are maybe on the point of, you know, fundamental and profound change and transformation. And maybe that's, I'm no expert, but it seems to me that that's fundamentally necessary, you know, for people to continue to thrive and prosper on this planet 100 years from now, and 250 years from now, and 1,000 years from now. So I wonder whether actually the world of work itself will transform, and there'll be an opportunity for transformation within that as well. And, you know, if what we're doing in the world of work isn't just about making more money this year than we made last year, but it's actually about really adding value back into communities and societies and, you know, humankind on a much broader scale, then I think there's lots of hope for the future. And I'm not overplaying Coverdale's role in it at all. But I believe we can play a small part in helping that to happen. And again, that's through helping individuals, teams, and organizations, whatever it is that they're doing, help them to think about and establish, true purposes on a personal level, purposes on a work level, but also developing these fundamental skills of leadership and human cooperation so that we can work more effectively together, not just within organizations, but across organizations.
Right.
Not just to address the material needs of humans, but actually more, I think, the kind of the social needs that we have, the need for trust, the need for respect, the need for appreciation, the need for doing work that's useful and worthy. So I see all kinds of positive opportunities, I think, in the future. And again, the more rooted they are in the application of these fundamental skills and the pursuit of worthy purposes at individual, team, and organizational level, and I think there's cause for much hope. I hope that in some way answers your question.
I like to hear that, but I think this is yeah. I can just nod and say yes. I think it's the same. It's the same thing, and this is actually why I also created this virtual fireplace. I think it's good to spread the word that there are a lot of people who are concerned and doing something. Of course, we can only do our share. We can create immense movements or something on like the kids are doing at the moment. I think Fridays for Future, I really like them, and I hate when someone says yes, but they're using their phones. Is this ecologically correct or something? I said, no, let them grow. They're kids. But they're going for the thing that they need a place to live. And I think this is a big thing. And of course they need to learn what components you need for that. And it's nice to go out and to say, okay, we want it different. And to find out, the older they grow, what their share can be. But I think also us who are the parents or even grandparents of these kids, we have our share in there.
Oh yeah, yes.
And we can do our share, and our experience can, our experience also with a slower world. We didn't grow up with all these fast devices and so on. So we have this rememberings of a slower world and what it implicates and how it does good and so on. And still, we are also this generation who invested everything into it. Because somehow we were taught it's necessary after the war and so on. I think working together also trans-generation-wise is so interesting. And as you said, trans-organization-wise. So for me, there is also hope. And I think there is different and diverse answers to making the world a better place. And I think we should just give them and do our share. And so for this, I really thank you so much and for this interview. And I would like to come to an end, but ask you a very difficult question. Now, I don't think it's so difficult. But if you have 3 sentences to describe your purpose, what is it?
Okay, that's a great question. I am driven by the purpose of enabling more and more people of all ages and of all walks of life to develop these fundamental skills of human cooperation so that in their families, in their communities, societies, in their places of work, they are able to be more purposeful and use these skills to support the way they live their lives and the work that they're doing, regardless of situation and context. And I would say that is so that the world in which we live and work is a better place, and in joining together with lots of other organizations seeking to make a transformation, we secure the future for future generations.
Thank you.
Those are the those are the purposes that I'm pursuing, I believe.
And if you talk about your talent in there,
my what?
what
Sorry,
makes your talent or your potential? Okay. You know, I'm sure. Well, I know it. I met you, and I'm knowing you, so I know you have a very special talent in approaching your purpose. Can you also define that? Can you give words to that?
Well, I feel really humbled by what you've just said. Thank you. I'm very grateful that you would think that and you would say that. I'm deeply passionate about the work that we do. I believe deeply in the value of the work that we do. And I, without sounding too grand, I care deeply. I care deeply about what we do. I care deeply about my colleagues. I care deeply about the people that we work with in the organizations that we work with and the communities and societies in which we are placed. And the other thing that I've learned about myself over the last few years is that it's not so easy for me to say this, but I'm good at doing what I do. You know, I'm 50 years old now, and it's only in the last couple of years where I believe that I'm doing what I was meant to do, right? And so I'm very lucky and very grateful. And I think it's a real privilege to be able to say that, but I love my work. I love it deeply. And I feel very grateful, and I'm doing what I was meant to do. So I think all of those things combine to enable me to be effective and add value in the work that we do and in the way that we do it.
Thank you. And I think you are just so good in observing, in listening, in digesting and creating something that supports others, with always being yourself. And this is something which creates in a room, as soon as you're talking there, creates a safe dignity for everyone. And this is, I think, why you are so good at it, because you can express this talent of yours to create an atmosphere of dignity and passion at the same time. You are just inspiring.
Well, again, I feel quite shy and deeply humbled that you would say that. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that feedback. It's I won't lie, it's really nice to hear, and I'm really grateful to hear it. May I just add one thing? And it was something that I saw you share with a group of very senior managers on a workshop that we were doing, a seminar workshop we were doing together, not all that long ago, and it really made me stop, and it made me think. You talked about in terms of what people say and how they say it, you know, conveying meaning, that we're able to do that even more effectively when there is a congruence, and you use that word very deliberately, when there's a congruence between what we're thinking and what we're sensing or feeling. And when there's a congruence between those two, and then we transmit that through what we say, that can then land very well with people, right? And I've thought about that a lot. And one of the things I've realized in light of hearing you say that and thinking about it is, yes, you're absolutely right. When we are able to somehow naturally there be a congruence between what we're thinking and what we feel, and then those come out in the words that we say and the way that we say it, that can really be powerful in a good way, in a helpful way, and add value to the discussion and to progress. And so I want to say a huge thank you to you for kind of sharing that with that whole cohort that we were working with. But when I heard you say it and draw it out on a flip chart, it really hit me. So, you know, thank you for sharing that. So it's that congruence, right? When we can make that congruence, I think that in the world of work that we do, I think that can be a really helpful thing.
Nice.
Yes.
So I hope that our viewers now, that we could inspire you, and that you're returning to this virtual fireplace, and that you also think of what you want to bring into this world, what your share is to make the world a better place, to make it a place worth living also in 10 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, and to always keep in mind that you need to do something that's good for you, that's for yourself, good for the other, and good for the world. And when you consider that, and having this congruence, Mark just said, I think we have a great place to look forward to, and I think it's worth investing that effort, because it also makes us feel good. So see you next time at the virtual fireplace with Speaking for the Future. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Karola. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me along.
And goodbye. This is Karola Sakotnik, and see you next time.